go, dog.
Right.
We gotta have it today.
Let's go. We gotta have it. Let's go.
Let's get it. Right on there. Let's go, big man.
Cordero turning the corner and crushing it near the midfield line in a first down.
Oh, he flipped it to Patterson, who will score.
Cordero Patterson will walk into the east end zone for the Atlanta touchdown. Cordero for the home run ball.
Touchdown, Atlanta.
Throw for Patterson, touchdown. Third touchdown of the day for Cordero Patterson. Thomas in a two-tight set, and they'll hand the ball to Hubbard. He fumbled it, and Atlanta's got it. He is wide open for the base. He's going to loop it to Fournette. It's intercepted. Touchdown, Atlanta. Oh, my goodness. Oh, he'll be sacked. Ball is loose. Great catch. Keeps it. Godwin and Brown to the left. Brady sacked. Deion Jones. The end zone. Caught. Touchdown. First career scoring catch for Kyle Pitts.
Back to the A.
Davis the catch. Inside the 10 to the 5. Mike Davis touchdown. Not one effort, not two efforts, but three. That's how you run the football. He got popped, ball out, and Atlanta recovered. My goodness, it was away, and it is good. Atlanta wins.
I didn't just want to play football and get the benefits of football. I really wanted to be challenged academically and really be a student athlete and get everything from it. And Tulane afforded me the opportunity to do that. The fourth game of the season, we're playing East Carolina, and I'm making a tackle, got rolled up on, and I broke my leg. And I see my senior year going well in my mind. I want to have a great year, be productive, and who knows what happens after that. Play in a bowl game and just have a great experience my senior year. And to break my leg at that time, it was hard. Heather Ryan she worked in academic services, and she grabbed me and said, "Hey Terry, there could be an opportunity." She said, "Because you didn't get another year and you're not going to be playing, there's an internship with the New Orleans Saints, so let's get your resume together and apply for it." And I got a phone call, and I answered. It was Janella Newsom, who was the Assistant Director of Community Affairs for the Saints. And she said, "Mr. Fontenot, we got your resume and we'd like to interview you to be an intern in marketing and community affairs." And I said, "Okay, well, can you tell me a little bit about the job description?" And so I said, "Ms. Newsom, I appreciate the call, but I'm gonna respectfully decline. Have a good day." And I hung up, and I get my keys and I'm about to go to work. And so I walk out the door and I open the door and the phone rings. Janella said, "Terry, do you realize what people do to get their foot in the door in the National Football League? This is a big deal. I really think you should consider interviewing." I did that. I went and interviewed. It worked out. I got the job, and I had a plan for myself. I knew what my plan was and what I wanted to do, but obviously God had other plans. And so for that to happen, for me to break my leg and for things to work out, for me to get that opportunity with the Saints, it was meant to be. I bought a disposable camera, and I said, "Take a picture of me for my first day at work." Man, and I look back at that picture sometimes and look at that kid, and I'm like, he has no clue.
He was working in marketing, and they were doing these caravans where I think their head coach and GM and a few players, they drive around to these little cities and do these appearances at the mall, and he was setting up the merchandise table. And I mean, he knew that's really not what he wanted to do, but he struck up a relationship with their GM, Mickey Loomis, and their relationship just formed over those caravans.
After I was done with my responsibilities in marketing and community affairs, then I would just go ask questions. But they just took the time to this eager, hungry marketing intern to just spend some time with me and just help me out a little bit, and that meant a lot. And she might not see me that night because I might stay at work all night because I want to make sure I do the very best that I can. So my head was always down, and you don't think about a lot of celebrating or a lot of taking time to really appreciate it because you're just worried about doing the very best you can with that next opportunity. If your name's mentioned as a possible general manager, that means a lot because there's only 32. I never felt that it was something specifically about me. It was about the organization I was a part of and what I meant to the organization. Once I really did a lot of digging into the organization and into Atlanta, that this was a job I wanted.
And new today, the Atlanta Falcons announced its new general manager. Here he is right here. 40-year-old Terry Fontenot comes to Atlanta after spending 16 seasons with division rival New Orleans.
I remember my first conversation with Arthur, going through that draft process. A lot of people work really hard to get to those moments, and it's a very inclusive process, but being able to pull those cards off and make those phone calls and just hear that raw emotion of those players, it was a priceless experience and one that I'll never forget.
Hello?
Kyle Pitts. This is Terry in Atlanta. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
You want to be a Falcon?
Yes, sir.
All right, man. We're going to turn the party right here.
Appreciate the opportunity. I'm ready.
With the 4th pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Atlanta Falcons select Kyle Pitts, tight end, Florida.
I believe we're setting a foundation, and so this year is always going to be meaningful. And I have faith in this in this opportunity and what we're going to do here, and we're going to outwork everyone. And so I'm excited. And when I think back to this year, I'll think about the challenges and what they're going to mean for us moving forward.
You better give me that.
It's A.J. Terrell with the pick. Patterson, touchdown. Intercepted. Michael Walker. That's Allison. Touchdown Atlanta. Mike, touchdown Atlanta. He's going to take the shot for Pitts. Makes the catch. Holy smokes. Marlon Davidson has a pick six. Huge lick by Eric Harris. Patterson who makes the catch.
Hi, everybody. With Dave Archer, Wes Durham, we welcome you to the Atlanta Falcons pre-draft show presented for you by Truist. Good to see you, my man. How are you?
Yeah, here we go again, right? Christmas time, baby. It's Christmas time in April.
Yeah, this is always a fascinating night for 32 teams. It's a fascinating night for fans. But tonight for Atlanta, this feels a little different than maybe in past years, Arch.
Yeah, for me it feels like maybe the beginning. I mean, I know last year was the beginning of the Terry Fontenot, Arthur Smith kind of era, if you will. Mm-hmm. But I think they were a little hamstrung. I think tonight, and I say that because you had some personnel here that weren't, hamstring's probably the wrong word to use. You had some existing people here that aren't here now. Let's put it that way. And so now there's kind of a new beginning, especially when you change the quarterback, and you've done that. You've gotten some good guys coming in. We'll talk about some of the guys that have come in. That's going to be a lot of fun to talk about those guys. But it just kind of feels like the new beginning is this year. It's been delayed a year. I think the pandemic has had something to do with that as well.
Interesting, too, Atlanta's in the top 10 for the second straight year. They pick at 8 in the first round. And speculation is all over the board, but it's a team with a lot of needs. And it's been discussed. It's been beaten around from a financial standpoint. Okay, let's look at it like this. Last year, Kyle Pitts was at 4. The last time at 8, it was Vic Beasley. He went defensive end. Last time they went defensive end was Tack McKinley in 2007. Last time they went quarterback, Matt Ryan in 2008. Now, add to that defensive end, quarterback, you got wide receiver involved, you got offensive line involved, you got defensive end involved, and you got cornerback involved.
Exactly.
So the window tonight is 5 positions. And, Arch, in all honesty, I've seen all 5.
I could see all 5 going, absolutely, and I think that makes this even more intriguing for the fan, is I'm sure there's fans that are coming down in certain spots. Hey, I want this guy, I want that guy, I want this position group, I want that position group. But in all rationale, if you sit back as a fan and you look at it, you say, I get that, I understand that pick. And so in a sense, you can't really go wrong.
Okay, what have we learned about what tonight means since the end of last year? Because I think that helps narrow the window a little bit, perhaps.
Well, it does, but I think that excuse me. I think what it does is it magnifies the difficulty in finding guys to fill in the right slots. You got a guy here at quarterback for 14 years that played at the highest possible level. Now all of a sudden that guy's not here anymore, and you've got a guy coming in, quite frankly, I think has a chip on his shoulder and has a lot to prove. I think that's a bonus. I think that's a plus for this football team. So when you look at the expanse of what Atlanta could potentially take here, it boggles the mind. But I know Terry Fontenot, his staff, Arthur Smith, his staff, have really ground this thing down and lined the board up where they've got a very definitive idea how they're going to attack it.
And Atlanta's got inventory too. And I'm not sure they had a lot of inventory last year. You talked about, kind of growing a year ago in the first year of the Smith-Fontenot administration. It feels like a little more draft capital this year, a little bit more wiggle room, can negotiate a little bit, could trade down. I'm not saying they'll trade down at 8. But they could trade down, could trade up in other areas as the draft evolves too.
The flexibility is certainly there. The 9 picks give you that. You've got 5 picks in the top, 80, 84 picks. So you do have some flexibility to slide if you find a guy you like. This is a very deep draft in a number of different positions. So I'm not sure you have to necessarily move. If you fall in love with a guy, they certainly have the ability to do that. There's some teams that don't. Carolina, just up the road, they've got no draft capital. They've got a first rounder, and then they think they pick again when we get 2 presidents from now. I mean, it's a long time off for them, like 3rd, 4th round. So Atlanta has some ability to slide.
We got a lot of ground to cover for you in this pre-draft show here tonight. We're going to cover not only what the process is. You'll hear from General Manager Terry Fontenot about that process. You're going to hear from the Final Whistle crew. They'll pick some players, so will Dave and I at the end of the night. But you're also going to hear from them about kind of how this has evolved as a product line. Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot both joined Scott Bair of AtlantaFalcons.com. You'll get their comments as we work our way toward the first round tonight about 8 o'clock Eastern time. So a lot of things to come here as and Dave mentions 5 picks of the first 84. That's a lot. That can change the dynamic of this football team pretty quick. And that's why other people have also talked about it being an impactful night for the Atlanta Falcons. So when we continue, we're going to dive into the process. Dave and I are going to look at the state of the Falcons today. What do they look like before they make the pick tonight at 8? We'll do that and more when the Atlanta Falcons pre-draft show, presented by Truist, continues in just one moment.
The value of AllStar games in general is it's the first time that us as scouts get to put our hands on the guys as far as interviews. We get to sit them down at night, we get to sit them down in the morning, trying to confirm or deny all the reports that we get from a character perspective during the school calls in the fall. But also to see them in a highly competitive environment against good on good, top competition around the country.
You have the fall season where you've been in the school, you watch these guys at their own campus, you watch them in games. Now you get to see them in a different environment.
You have a lot of the best players out there, and the one-on-ones and the teamwork, and getting to see those guys, the way they compete, the way they do things, and see their progression and how they take the coaching and from day 1 to day 3 and then into the game, and how they learned, and getting to spend the time with them and interview them. And so it's a really valuable exposure. Everyone's involved, and everyone has a voice. And we don't want groupthink, we don't want everyone to agree, we want everybody to have their opinions, and the opinions are based off of real research, a lot of film, a lot of gathering information, spending time with the players. So it's based off of a lot of really good levels of information, and then we're not going to have groupthink, we're going to discuss it and make sure we find players we love.
We want all of our scouts to have conviction on every player, so that's the importance of interviewing them and finding out, the tape is the tape, but we got to know how the kids are wired as well.
It's a grind, but it's the fun part of this because we're going to make our team better. We're going to bring in competition at every position. And again, these college scouts have worked really hard now getting the coaches involved and bringing in some players that we love.
For us, the coaches, we're kind of late to the party. So we talk about collaborative. I mean, the scouts have put, some of these people have put years of work into getting to know the player. Obviously, we come in after the season, and I try not to make snap judgments. It's just an ongoing process. It's fun to get to be a part of it, and I'm excited to be here in Indy. We're actually in person.
It's different because you're playing football in Mobile and you're not here. And we're getting times, and those things are important. It's comparative data, but it's really what we're locked in on is movement skills of the players and when they go through the workouts. And then the more important part is the interview process. We get 45 of them in a formal setting.
The most important thing we do is assess makeup. So in order to do that, we get information from the schools, and we've gathered a lot of information, the area scouts, on the players, but now we actually get to meet them and spend more time with them. This is a really important exposure because you get to get a good feel for these players and see how they're wired, if they love the game, who's football smart, and you just really get to assess those players apples to apples. And then as we continue from the combine, where it's the pro days and bringing players into your facility, all those exposures are really important.
I've never subscribed to a one-size-fits-all, so as you get to know every one of these players, you try to figure out how they learn, what they're about, what makes them tick. Because at the end of the day, this is a relationship business between coach and player, and I understand how they learn best. And so this is just a small part of it as you're building this, as you're building kind of the entire bio. So when we get down in late in April, we make the best decision.
Every exposure you can get with players is important. The more time we can spend with them, every time we can get our hands on them and talk to them and really get a feel for who they are, it's all really critical. And look, there's some players that aren't here that didn't make this combine list. They're going to get drafted and they're going to be good football players. So we're going to, as soon as we leave here, we're going to hit the ground hard and pound the pavement, and we'll be in the schools and finding good players. So it's all important.
Back with Dave Archer, West Durham, and this segment brought to you by American Family Insurance. And I enjoyed hearing Terry Fontenot and Kyle Smith and Anthony Robinson talk about the process of not just the Senior Bowl but also the Combine. You mentioned this a moment ago. It's a more normal offseason, too, for both Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith.
Yeah, I think that, trying to settle into a new chair as Terry did at the beginning of February, Arthur in that same period as well, and then trying to get up to speed with where's your office and all the kind of stupid stuff that you have to deal with to a certain extent. You have to, where do I go? Where do I park? All that stuff's out of the way, and now you can settle in. You've got your staff built the way you want it, because it was still that process. Remember, they were building their staff, trying to evaluate the roster. There was a lot going on.
Dave, I'm going to ask you from the standpoint there were lots of transactions, lots of transitions with this football team in the offseason, some directly impacted because of the salary cap. We understand that. Matt Ryan, 14 years, the starting quarterback here in Atlanta, traded to Indianapolis in exchange for a third. Of the ones that you've seen here, where do you think the team's been impacted most by the transactions to date? Well,
you can't go any further than the quarterback position. Marcus Mariota is a guy that I think is the perfect guy in this situation. You just left a guy that's a franchise great. You get a guy coming in. To me, Marcus Mariota has a chip on his shoulder.
Sure.
I think you come in, you were a guy at Tennessee. If things didn't work out for whatever reason, you've backed up, you've gotten healthy with the Raiders. You come in, he's only 28 years old. He turns 29 in the middle of the season. This guy's a young dude. He hadn't even probably reached his prime yet, So you get that one immediately sticks out. Casey Hayward coming in at corner, I think, is another one, a veteran guy that understands how to win, understands how to be a pro. I think that's a big deal. Doesn't mean you don't draft a corner, but you've got a guy that you like in that situation. I think Lorenzo Carter, and you're going to hear this. You're going to hear me say this about all these guys. I think they're all chip on the shoulder guys. I think Lorenzo Carter comes back home, former Dog, didn't really work out in New York for whatever reason. Maybe got some criticisms up there. He's back with family down here. I think he's ready to just unload on somebody coming off the edge. I think there's a number of guys that fit that same category.
I think one of the other interesting parts about this football team we have to recognize going into tonight is that there were some guys who were on the field a year ago to kind of help turn the corner that returned, most notably Cordero Patterson. I thought the Cordero Patterson piece was pretty important especially once Ryan's departure was imminent, because I think Patterson's a guy that can rally younger players, right?
I don't think there's any question about that. Cordero's a very likable guy. He's a very positive dude. I think every time you and I had a chance to talk to him post-game, there was always, it didn't matter what happened in the game, he came out with a positive attitude of what they were going to do next. And I think that carries over to the practice field, carries over to the weight room, meeting rooms, whatever. So that leadership that he brings back, just the kind of the joy to play, I think Cordero Patterson brings that. Plus, I think he learned something about himself. He got a huge workload last year.
Yep.
And I think it affected him a little bit late in the year. I think he'll have a little better understanding of how to manage himself a little bit as well.
Yeah, I think Patterson, Eric Harris falls into that category. When healthy, I thought was a contributor, certainly not only statistically, but a guy who also kind of helped the team turn the corner with Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot.
I agree. Eric Harris is a guy that, again, veteran guys that understand how to practice, understand how important it is to come in the building with the right attitude. You got to come in here every day on a Wednesday, Thursday, ready to get better. You got to leave the building a better player than when you got here. Eric Harris is one of those kind of guys that makes that happen.
All right, so we've kind of moved to where the state of the team is now. They've added Damian Williams, who is a running back from Kansas City. But again, I think you've hit on a very important point heading into tonight. This is a football team that went, because of where they were with the cap now, went out and got some guys, shorter deals, who've maybe got something to prove to get to the next deal, right?
I love it. I love it. I think you could have gotten guys that are just excited to get one more deal in the NFL and then they're done. I don't think you got any of those kind of guys. I think you've got guys that still think and are young enough to know I've still got a lot to contribute. I still have a chance to be a guy in this league. I can be a Pro Bowler in this league. You can't tell me that Marcus Mariota is not coming in here thinking I can be the starting quarterback in a playoff game, maybe the Pro Bowl, whatever. He's coming in to rekindle his career, and Atlanta's going to benefit from it.
Well, and remember, you still got young guys left from last year's draft. You saw Ogundeji play a ton. You saw Kyle Pitts make contributions. I mean, there are young guys all over the football field. It's still, by nature and statistically, one of the younger football teams in the league.
Yeah, I think that there was a lot of guys that got play time by design. Arthur Smith had talked about that during training camp. Remember in training camp, none of those starters were really in. He had those young guys playing. Paid dividends later on in the season because some of them had to play, and it wasn't that they couldn't. They were ready to roll, and he had put guys on the field. I thought that addressing some of the guys they had brought along, some of the big guys, Anthony Rush, a guy that you added, and he was on the practice squad, and all of a sudden you bumped him to the regular roster. He made a difference. Got him re-signed. That's another guy that's back on the roster as well. So I think there's a lot of things that were accomplished last year that's going to benefit you this year.
Well, and I'll use Richie Grant and Avery Williams as guys, right? Williams certainly in punt return, but oftentimes in secondary latter part of the season. And I thought the kind of the evolution of Richie Grant during the year was typical of what you expect out of a draft pick.
And oh, by the way, you've got an emerging star at one of your corner positions. A.J. Terrell has a chance to be one of the great players in this league, and he's only going into year 3. That bodes well for you, too. Do you couple him with somebody else? I guess we'll get to that, but do you couple him with somebody else? I mean, I'm excited about it. I'm excited what A.J. Terrell has already turned into in just his third season.
All right, when we continue on the Atlanta Falcons pre-draft show, you're going to hear from the Falcons' new quarterback, Marcus Mariota. All that and more coming up.
I've been a guy that's a starter in this league. I've been a guy that's won a playoff game. I've been a guy that's also been benched. I've been a guy that's also, been just a practice player. So I really feel like my value as a leader comes in relationships. I'm going to be able to relate to a lot of different people because I've experienced a lot of different things in this league. The value that I've had over my time, over my short career, is going to allow me to be a guy that people can come to, and hopefully I can elevate them and make them the best players they can be. I want to continue to prove that not only am I a starter, but I can play at a high level. Given the opportunity to be a leader, to be a guy that guys can look to. At the end of the day, I think to play the quarterback position, it's important to elevate the play of your teammates. And for me, being in a couple of different spots, I can relate to a lot of different people. And that value, I think, can help these guys become the best. And really, that's my ultimate goal. During my time in Tennessee, we went through a lot of different things. Went through coaching changes. I went through, a broken ankle. I went through some of these things that people would call adversity. And, I was tired. I was just kind of tired of all the turnover. I was tired of being beat up. Wasn't playing well. And, at the end of the day, this is a performance-based business. And when you're not playing well, things happen. and I understood that. So, I was both mentally and physically beat up, and I think this is a great opportunity for me to kind of showcase what I've learned over the course of the last couple of years. Being around guys like Ryan Tannehill and Derek Carr, guys that have played at a high level. With Art, I think we've developed a relationship where we can communicate, we can get things off our chest, we can put forth what we think is best for the offense. And then secondly, he's always going to be honest with me. And if there's things that I need to improve on, he's going to work on it with me. And that's why I think and believe in this situation, and I'm excited for this opportunity. What Matt did here, what he's accomplished here is truly greatness. And for me, I just got to kind of carve my own path. I appreciate what he's done, appreciate what he's been for this organization. And the best thing that I can do is try to put my best foot forward and be the best player that I can be. Whatever comes of that, whatever successes, whatever failures, just take everything on the chin and understand that this is my process, this is my journey, and just appreciate what he's done and what he's been for this organization. For me, as my career continues to go forward, I really believe that the things that I've gone through have prepared me for this moment, and I'm just excited to just get back out on the field and show what I'm capable of. Getting in last season, at points in times, be able to run the football, I feel great. My legs are under me. I feel like I can be explosive. I can do things out of the pocket. So to be able to have that, to be creative, to be dynamic, that's kind of where I feel like offenses are going, and I'm more than capable of doing that. You can expect a quarterback that's grown up a lot, that's gone through the ups and downs, that's gone and played at a high level, that's kind of also been down at the lowest point, but has realized that those experiences ultimately will make me a better player. You're going to see the mobility, you're going to see the throwing, you're going to see all that kind of stuff, but you're going to realize that, what I was 3-4 years ago isn't necessarily who I am now, and I'm really excited to show fans as well as even myself what I'm capable of.
Terry, thank you so much for joining us. And it's crazy to think that we've been talking about the NFL draft for so long, but now it's finally here, right? What's this weekend like now that you're actually going to go make those picks?
It's really exciting, and it really, you step back and you're really thankful for all the work that's went into it, and so many people that have a part in this process, and you get really excited because as we go in and having 9 draft picks at this point, we could have a couple more, we could have a few less, but at the end of the day, having all that draft capital, and there's a lot of really good players, and we're going to find the right players that fit us and pull them off the board, and it's really exciting.
How is this year different? The second go around with a lot of these people.
Yeah, well, we've lived together. We know each other a lot more, right? We've been through a season together. We've been through ups and downs. And with us, the relationship part of it, the relationships with the coaches, the scouts, the entire staff, that's all important because this is an inclusive process. It's not 2 people making every decision. We're taking in everything and everyone's involved. So in building those relationships and being cohesive as a staff, that's all important.
You have a chance to bring in a lot of top talents in this NFL draft. You mentioned it earlier. You have 5 picks in the top 82. That's a pretty high volume. What kind of possibilities does that afford you, having that volume of day 1 and day 2 picks?
Yeah, there's so many possibilities because we could come away from day 1 and day 2 with 3 players. Mm-hmm. And yet, if we do that, that means that we packaged some things and traded up and got some players that we just absolutely fell in love with. We're going to be excited about those 3, or we can move back and come away with 6 players. Mm-hmm. And so you have a lot of different opportunities, and there are a lot of good players in this draft. And so that it's exciting because you really have flexibility when you have that amount of draft capital.
How do you kind of build the groundwork for maybe making a deal if that's something that you happen to do?
Right. That's what we've been doing over the last few days, over the last week, and we'll be doing right up until Thursday, having all those conversations with other GMs, other personnel people, other coaches, just figuring out what you anticipate happening and what they would like to do. And so you have those preliminary conversations. So then when you're on the clock, you've already laid the groundwork for those trades. So things happen on the clock, but we've already done a lot of work leading up into it.
What are your overall thoughts on this quarterback draft class and maybe adding one to the Falcons?
Yeah, we'll add one to the room, and whether it could be in this draft, in any of the rounds, it could be after the draft. We're not going to close any doors. We'll turn over every stone in terms of adding quarterbacks, and we're excited about Marcus, and we'll continue to work with Felipe and go through that process, but we do need to add to that room.
You're not always going to draft as high as number 8. You're not always going to have 5 days 1 and 2 selections. How important is it to really strike here with all of these opportunities? And do you feel like you can get a lot better in a very short period of time?
Yeah, that's a great question. It is a very important draft because we don't want to be drafting in the top 10 very often. And again, having that many picks in the first couple of days, that's unique as well. And so it is very important. And I think the most important thing is, as we're establishing the right culture, bringing in players that fit our ethos, that fit the makeup that we're establishing, you want to make sure you hit on those areas and bring in the right kind of human beings, bring in players that are wired the right way and have the right intangibles. So I think it's very important. I know it's very important because we want to make sure we bring the right people in the building.
Terry, thank you so much for the time and best of luck in the 2022 NFL Draft coming right up.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you.
Terry Fontenot's interview with Scott Bear presented to you by Publix. And Dave, when we talk about this first year for Terry Fontenot as the general manager, and he came obviously with extensive experience in New Orleans, I think he realized the value of the cards he'd been dealt. How do you capsule the first year?
Well, I think that when you look at the team, the way the team played, and that's really what you're going to look at. You're going to look at how the team responded to what they put on the field. 7 wins in your 17 games. You were in probably 2 or 3 others that could have flipped the switch, and all of a sudden you look up and you're 9-8. Something like that could have happened. But I thought you were a formidable team most every time you were out there. You had a chance to win. You're late in games. And so that means he put competitive guys on the field. And so he's trying to find competitive guys that fit the bill here in Atlanta. And let's face it, when you come to play in Atlanta, you got a team that represents you on the field, but you also got a team that represents you in the public. And there was a number of these guys that were really good assets that went out and did stuff during their downtime, which is part of the DNA of a Falcon.
We can look at certain players' positions as we head into tonight, things like that. If you're going to parlay where this franchise is going, everybody asks that, how many starters do you need out of tonight to push you into 22? Do you have a number you're thinking about tonight?
Well, I think that I'm probably looking at the first 3 picks as coming in and being immediately impactful, because you're talking about 2 second-round picks, a first-round pick. Now, the caveat to that is if you draft a quarterback. So quarterback's still on the board for Atlanta. Atlanta could get a quarterback at 8. They could get a quarterback at 42. They could get a quarterback with that second pick of the second round. It could happen. He's not going to start this year unless something happens to Mariota.
Correct.
Okay? So in that case, you wouldn't get that. But I would anticipate as many as 3 guys starting. Or I'm sorry, 3 guys starting and coming in being maybe impactful. Because when you talk about starters, you got to be careful, because you got to remember there's about 14 starters because of packages on defense, and it's the same way on offense. So all of a sudden you're looking at 28 to 30 guys that you'd categorize as starters. Impact guys, 3 certainly, and I think you could do as many as 5 or 6 out of this draft.
Yeah, that's the part about this that I think is kind of interesting. And he's very intentional about the way he wants to build this team. I think, and the good thing for Falcon fans in terms of where we're going in the future is the relatability he and Arthur Smith have about the construction of that team.
Yeah, I think he's real cognizant about not reaching. You hear him talk about it all the time. I'm not going to reach for a player. We have needs. We understand that. This is a needy roster. He gets that. But he also understands that I can't reach for a guy that I don't have rated as high as this guy. And we've got some pretty good depth there. But it behooves me to take this guy. It's a better player. I think they do a really good job of making sure, and we talk about this all the time on our broadcast, they stack the board. You stack the board up and down, 1 to 365 or whatever it is, and then you stack them across based on positions. And how does that match up? I think Terry does a really good job, and he continues to live by that creed, is if we've got a couple guys that are rated similar, I'll go ahead and get the need guy. But if we've got a need guy, and then a guy that's rated much higher, I'm going to take that best player.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the bigger board you've got to be cognizant of, too. You've got to be looking at that. Tonight with Atlanta, not just at 8, but certainly those other 4 picks we're talking about in the top 80-some, is Atlanta has got to be intentional, but they also have to be flexible. they've got inventory to make moves to help maybe the football team get better by trading back.
Well, you want to win now, but you don't want to. You're not going to mortgage right now to not have your future set up too, and that's really the balancing act here that Terry and Arthur are trying to get done.
All right, more to come here. You're going to hear from a little bit about from Arthur Smith as he projects into 22 as well. That's still to come. But let's join Scott Bair, Chris Rim, and Tori McElhaney with some thoughts.
Thanks, Wes, and I'm here with the Falcons Final Whistle crew. If you guys haven't already, please rate, review, subscribe, all that fun stuff to the Falcons Final Whistle Pod, which is presented by Microsoft Windows 11. And a big thank you to them, the official operating system of the NFL and the Atlanta Falcons. The all-new Windows 11 is here to bring you closer to what you love, like us at the Falcons Final Whistle Podcast. And what we've talked about on the podcast that I really want to talk about right here is where the Falcons team needs are heading into the NFL draft. What needs to be addressed during this stretch, right? Now, it's not a checklist of got to get this in this exact order. That's not how the draft works. But Tori, since you wrote the story on ranking the Falcons draft needs, break it down for us.
Well, it was interesting because I could have written it like 1A, 1B, and did 1A pass rush. 1B pass rush, because edge rusher is such a significant need. We know this. We've talked about this. This is not a secret to anyone anywhere.
Right.
The Falcons have to improve at that position group, at edge rusher. They just have to.
There were 18 sacks last year.
There were individuals with more sacks than the Falcons. You have to change that. So number 1 and 1A, 1B, edge rusher. I also think wide receiver, significant area of need. We know this. Russell Gage has gone to Tampa Bay. Calvin Ridley suspended for the 2022 season.
Right.
So you have a ton of needs at wide receiver. You've got to get a true wide receiver, and I know people are like, oh, well, you brought back Cordero Patterson. You brought back Kyle Pitts. That's a running back and a tight end. You need true receivers. Those are my top 2 needs if I'm ranking, without question.
Anything after that?
Offensive tackle.
Offensive tackle.
I think the long-term health of the offensive line, particularly at offensive tackle, because you do know that Caleb McGarry's contract is coming to an end, his rookie deal. So thinking about the long-term health of the offensive line, and there's some good offensive tackles in the first that are going to go in the first 10 picks.
Right. So the Falcons have 5 picks in the top 82, but Chris, let's just look at that number 8 spot especially, right? Kind of, do you have to go edge rusher or wide receiver? Kind of give me the lay of the land in terms of where the Falcons can address those needs early on, but still get great value.
Yeah, I think like Tori just mentioned, and as we've talked on multiple podcast episodes before, I think it's more about the who at 8 than the what. So if one of the group of 4, the big 4, Fab 4, edge rushers are there, I think you get whoever that 4th edge rusher is that's there. I also think if Evan Neal, or I don't want to mispronounce Icky from NC State is there. Even Charles Cross, if one of those guys are there, that's a player. Those are players I think Falcons fans should be happy with, and I think the group, the personnel side would be happy with. As far as wide receiver goes, I think, like we've talked about before, if you're in love with a player at 8, if you're in love with the receiver at 8, go ahead and get him. But at 8, you'll likely have the first swing at it. You'll probably get the top guy if you want him there. But also I think at 8, if there's a top receiver or the 4th edge rusher, I would probably take the 4th edge rusher.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because something we talked about on the podcast before is how we think the difference between the top 4 edge rushers and the difference between the top 4 wide receivers in this draft.
Right.
There is the wide receiver depth. I feel like you're going to have more of an opportunity in the second round to get really, really good wide receivers. And I don't think I could say the same thing about edge rusher.
So when we're talking about the top 4 edge rushers, we're talking about Aiden Hutchinson, Trayvon Walker, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Jermaine Johnson, right? And there could be a run on those guys early on, so you think, but if they could come away with one of those 4, I think their pass rush gets instantly better. That's a major need, right? As we kind of start winding down here, right, their quarterback you didn't mention.
I did.
And there is no long-term plan here. Right now it's Marcus Mariota. here. It's a shorter term contract. They are still executing a succession plan. Why was that not higher on your needs list?
I just am not 100% sold on this quarterback class, and I hope
again, it's more about the who than the what.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
If you're really thinking about best player available, I don't know if I can say with full confidence that any of these top quarterbacks are better than a Sauce Gardner if he's there at number 8. There's no way that I'm taking one of the quarterbacks over Sauce.
Right.
Period. And so I think when I think about this draft, it really does matter how those first 7 picks go, who's available at 8. And in terms of quarterbacks, I just feel like, would you be reaching if you are taking a quarterback at number 8? I'm not saying that the Falcons shouldn't take a quarterback at all.
Right.
However, I wouldn't take one at 8.
Yeah, well, I think too with quarterbacks, it's kind of always a reach in a way, right?
Yeah.
Because as we've seen, if you have the guy at quarterback, oftentimes he'll get you there, or hit him and the parts will get you there, but not reverse. The parts without him won't get you there. So investing in that franchise guy, like last year's draft, it was maybe you say Trevor Lawrence was the best player in the draft, but after Trevor Lawrence, it was Kyle Pitts, and some people would say Kyle Pitts was the best player in the draft, but he went 4. So quarterbacks often get pushed up because their value. So I think, as we said, I agree with you though in terms of best player available. Just saying that if there is a quarterback taken, their grade often gets pushed up because of the positional value.
Yeah.
And there you have it. I think edge rusher and wide receiver absolutely vital. Guys, thank you so much for the time. Wes and Dave, back to you.
Scott, thanks very much. Still to come, Scott will sit down an exclusive interview with Falcons head coach Arthur Smith when the Atlanta Falcons pre-draft show presented by Truist continues in a moment.
With the 4th pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Atlanta Falcons select Kyle Pitts.
He is the highest drafted tight end in history.
He called him a gold jacket talent.
Pitts, who makes the catch, and a flag is thrown. What a catch by Pitts. Holy smokes. First career scoring catch for Kyle Pitts.
Down the far sideline, 45-40. End zone touchdown. That's the rookie Kyle Pitts.
The Atlanta Falcons are continuing to change the game on season ticket benefits. Join the Falcons family in 2022 for more games, more access, and more value than ever before, including tickets to our biggest season yet at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, with 9 regular season home games, plus ultimate ticket flexibility with the ability to exchange tickets for games you can't attend, free gear for all members, and free away game tickets. Select your seat today. Rise up.
After all the scouting has gone into this and all the player evaluation, the NFL draft is now upon us. Is this one of your favorite times of the offseason, and what do you enjoy about this process leading up to making the picks?
Well, I love the process. We've got a really good staff here. These guys have put a ton of work into it. It's been a very collaborative effort leading up to this, and we're excited because there's unknown, there's excitement. It's the closest thing you're going to get until the season starts, a little bit of an adrenaline rush. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
All of the Falcon scouts, they've been evaluating these guys for almost a full year. But the coaches are, getting the team ready for games or playing games. Tell the fans at what point the coaches come into the process, and when do you kind of feel like you're done catching up and you're kind of up to speed with it?
Yeah, I think the thing you got to understand is that coach is coach and scout's scout. But you're going to have your opinions, and I think the more that you understand and collaborate, say, here's the vision for the player. I think what happens a lot of times is people back themselves in a corner. Well, they don't want somebody, and then they find reasons, this guy can't play. That's not true. There's a lot of good players that will be in the draft. We got to make sure that we got the right fit for us. And so the scouts do a tremendous job. They've got a lot of the background. Obviously, they've watched years of tape. We get caught up. We give our opinion. But at the end of the day, we're saying, here's how we coach this guy. Here's how he would fit. And then you got to rely on the scouts that have done all the background checks to make sure that there's nothing that you're missing.
How much, when you're watching tape or seeing these guys work out or talking to them, does scheme fit and locker room fit play into your preferences?
Well, it all goes into it. Obviously, in a perfect world, you'd have 53 guys that are perfect, football characters and they fit every measurable. That's not going to be the case. And so I think if you make sure you understand exactly the person, how he learns, everything, what he's going to be like every day, you know exactly how you need to coach him. And then obviously for the talent evaluation part is to make sure that, hey, look, yeah, these are certain measurables we're looking for.
When a player gets drafted, that's a huge moment, right? But after that is when the coaching comes in and you draft and then you develop, right? Well, the development takes a long time, and kind of give fans an idea of when that process starts and kind of what it takes to get even a very talented elite talent ready to play NFL football.
They'll be in here in 2 weeks in our rookie mini camp, and that's really when it starts. Their first taste of the NFL, what we're asking them to do, what our team goals are, the culture of this place, try to get them caught up. There's so much to get them caught up for them. And then the NFL does a good job with the rookie development program. These players are involved in the entire spring, and you're just building them up. And I think the one thing, the mistakes, everybody's just ready to go out there and have them run 100 reps. You're not going to do that. We'll bring them along the right way and make sure they understand, like, this is exactly who we thought we were getting. What's the vision? You know, these guys, we project this player will be available, you know, week one. What's his role going to be? And that'll all, dust will settle when we get through camp.
Going into this draft, do you think that as you guys continue to strengthen this roster, that this draft is really important? I know they're all important, but you're not always going to draft number 8. You're probably going to draft a lot lower than that, and you're probably not going to have as many day 1 and 2 picks as you have. So is this a real opportunity to land a number of really significant impact players in a very short span?
Yeah, we feel pretty strongly about that. I mean, and a lot of it is our current reality. You talk about short-term guys that we're going to, whether we like it or not, that may be forced to play just by where we're at with the salary cap. And obviously things will change in a year. And as you build this, you know, year over year, you always want to replenish in the draft. Obviously, with the current situation, yeah, there are a lot to be expected from this draft class.
That's awesome. Coach, thank you so much for the time. Best of luck in the 2022 NFL Draft.
Appreciate it, Scott.
Scott, thanks very much. And, of course, his visit with Arthur Smith is presented by Rockland Homes. And, Dave, here's the thing about the first-year Falcon coach from a season ago. I thought winning close games was a step about what his program is going to be when he gets everything on the table.
Yeah, I think that winning games, they won some games late in games, and the beauty of it was they didn't just win games on offense. We have been used to winning games late on offense, storming back. Matt Ryan led back, 35, 30, 40 times, came from behind. But you didn't remember winning games on the other side of the ball. They won some games last year. The Foye-Lukin interception against Detroit, win the football game at the end. I thought that became who they were, that we're going to fight you to the final moment. That's kind of what he's been trying to get across. I love the guy because I've had a chance to interact with him a number of times, obviously during the year with my interviews with him, pregame, postgame, or whatever. He wants to win football games, and he's not going to mix a lot of words. He says, we're going to line up and we're going to come after you. We're going to be the toughest team on the field, and we're going to play you for 60 minutes.
Yeah, I think the success in the details is something that got maybe overlooked a little bit, because I remember those postgame visits you had on radio where he talks about the preparation process, and that's where the payoff occurred, right, on game day.
He wants to win on Wednesday. Okay,
yeah.
You can't win on Sunday unless you're winning Wednesday, Thursday, and I guess it's kind of cliched and old at it, but if you live it, which is what this team did, I had a chance to watch them practice and be around the team, and you start to live out on the field. I think that transfers because you've got guys you've talked about who we've got coming back. Those guys are carrying that forward with the new guys coming in, and that's the mantra they want to have.
All right, what is the one principle you think they can build on for 22 that happened on the field?
Well, I think that the fact that they play 60 minutes, I think there's no question that has to be a mainstay for you. But I think when you begin to look at X's and O's, I think that obviously there's a lot of places they can expand. Their ability to run it with some success, their ability to stop the run with some success. I think there's a lot of ways they can go. I don't think there's just one thing they're going to have hitch their wagon to. I think if you want to be a team that has a winning record and then is threatening the playoffs, you have to have some success in several areas.
All right, now we're coming up on the top of the hour, and that's when the National Football League draft will start. But keep in mind, we've taken you through the process with Terry Fontenot. You've heard from both Terry Fontenot and the way he wants this team to be, and also the head football coach and what his expectations are for the 2022 campaign and what he expects out of the draft. But who are you going to draft? Well, when we come back, we're going to dive into the position players, the top players at the positions, potentially where Atlanta goes tonight and where they may go over the weekend as the NFL draft is fast approaching. Stay tuned. More of the Atlanta Falcons pre-draft show presented by Truist in a moment.
With the 16th pick in the 2020 NFL Draft, the Atlanta Falcons select A.J. Terrell.
Looking to throw, zipping it for, and intercepted. It's A.J. Terrell with the pick. Here comes Atlanta with the pressure. He's going to bail and throw, and A.J. Terrell's going to pick it. How about that?
Short drop, fires over the middle, and it's intercepted again at the Atlanta 41. A.J. Terrell.
Welcome back to the Atlanta Falcons pre-draft show presented by Truist with Dave Archer, Wes Durham. Our top players segment is presented for you by Emory Healthcare, and we've narrowed this down to 5, despite the fact that there have been 6 different positions mocked up by a variety of people when it comes to what the Falcons are going to do tonight at 8. Let's start with edge rusher here, because that's one place that it's expected to flourish at the top. Aiden Hutchinson, Trayvon Walker, 1A, 1B to Jacksonville, and if the other one goes to Jacksonville, the second one may go to Detroit at 2. So
it could, and it's interesting. To me, in the draft, the top 8 selections are very interesting. I think you had could have 3 defensive ends or edge rushers, 3 offensive tackles. Don't know where the quarterback pokes his head in. Where does he poke if he pokes his head in for someone? And then I think 2 corners are the next 2 best players that are available. So that's 8 picks. So at some point you end up with some of those. Let's take a look at some of the guys. Aiden Hutchinson, Trayvon Walker, I think are going to be off the board.
Correct.
So Kayvon Thibodeau potentially in play here. Don't know, but he could be in play. I think he fits the team the best, to be honest with you. I think he's a guy, tremendous get-off. Probably the best get-off in the draft. 19 sacks at Oregon in his 3 seasons at Oregon, or 18 sacks or whatever it is. But he has 30 tackles for loss. So, Wes, that tells you he's not just playing the pass game. He's tackling guys in the backfield in the run game. So he's playing the run game as well. And with Dean Pease's ability to amoeba the defense, where the edge rusher is a lot of times a linebacker, or could be a linebacker, he fits the bill perfectly. The other guy, Jermaine Johnson, former Dog, lit it up. You know about him doing ACC games, ACC Defensive Player of the Year. He's an Iron Man. He played 60 snaps a game. He had 70 tackles at the defensive end spot for Florida State.
A year ago tonight, Kayvon Thibodeau was projected the number 1 pick in the draft for next year. And then tonight there'll be somebody to be projected next year, potentially Bryce Young, Alabama, but another story for another time. All right, let's go to the next slot, and we're going to break these up because if it's not edge rusher, it's either corner or offensive line that most mocked perhaps for the Falcons.
Yeah, and I think there's only 2 corners potentially you're looking at. It's Ahmad, put some sauce on it, Gardner from Cincinnati. He's got tremendous ball skills. In his career at Cincinnati, did it all. He's 6'3", 190, can run. He's got long arms. The guy is a terrific player. He's the AAC Defensive Player of the Year. The other is Derek Stingley. He's a little bit more of a question mark. Didn't play much his sophomore and junior year because of injury. He had a boot on his foot, I think, the last 9 games of the year for the Tigers this last season. But if you put his tape on as a freshman, he was dynamic, as good as it gets, and he ran 4.36 at his pro day, so that put him right back on the map.
Yeah, all right. Offensive line.
Offensive line, 3 guys. You're talking about Evan Neal, the big kid at Alabama, a monster. It's 350-plus pounds, 6'7", can run like a tight end, looks like a tight end when he gets off the bus, can play all the positions except center, so you could play him anywhere. You could plug him in at right tackle, wherever, right guard, left guard. Ike Ekwonu, the kid out of NC State. Many feel like he's now emerged as the best guy. He is a nasty finish you blocker to the back end of the whistle. He wants to crush you. And then you've got Charles Cross, the tackle out of Mississippi State, who's probably the best pass blocker, pure pass blocker. 713 pass attempts at Mississippi State under the flying pirate up there, but only gave up 2 sacks.
Okay.
So he has the ability to pass block.
All right, the next position, the one that's maybe been most common, is wide receiver.
Wide receiver. This is an interesting group because nobody can get a consensus on who is that guy, and I think it may be a different fit for each team. I think that Garrett Wilson, great speed, run after the catch guy from Ohio State, only 180 pounds. Very similar, maybe a little bit more top end speed, very similar to Calvin Ridley.
Right.
Okay, you look at Drake London, big kid out of USC, 6'5", 215 pounds. Nobody's winning a 50-50 ball over him. He's going to go get it. Now, you don't see him running away from anybody, but he still makes catches everywhere. I kind of liken him to maybe a Michael Thomas or a Mike Evans type of receiver. Big dude, right? Then you get Chris Olave, very similar to Garrett Wilson, both Ohio State guys. And then there's the question, Jameson Williams. Is Jameson Williams a guy you draft and bet on the come? Because he's probably not going to be ready for probably till maybe October.
Right.
Tore his knee up against Georgia in the national championship game, the Alabama wide receiver. Those are the top 4 guys that I feel are going to be there. And so, yeah, you could take one of those guys. It'd just be interesting to see. But I think they're coveted differently by different teams. Maybe the most diverse group that could go in the first round.
All right. The final word is at quarterback. There has been the occasional quarterback mock to the Falcons.
Yeah, I mean, when you begin to look at it, is it Kenny Pickett, maybe the more polished product, had an amazing year at Pitt, took him to the championship game, phenomenal season for him at Pittsburgh. And then you got Malik Willis, the youngster. He's an Atlanta kid. Be fun for him to come home. He's got the most upside, big arm, can run. And then you get Desmond Ridder. Don't forget about him. I think he's a very accomplished guy as well.
All right, stay tuned. We're coming up on the top of the hour, and that's when the 2022 NFL Draft starts from Clark County, Nevada. But when we come back, we'll swing it around to the final whistle. They'll tell you who they think the Falcons are going to pick, and then Dave and I offer our thoughts as well after this.
The Atlanta Falcons select
Grady Jarrett rings the bell on third down. Jarrett takes it down. Shall not pass. And will be sacked by Grady Jarrett.
And that is Grady Jarrett from Rockdale, America right there.
Grady Jarrett got another one. Oh, what a hit that is. Goodness. Your man. Grady Jarrett. Somebody didn't block 97 in the white jersey. Jarrett wraps him up, and he's going to be sacked. And Atlanta gets a sack.
Welcome back to the Atlanta Falcons pre-draft show. Minutes away from the start of the first round tonight in Las Vegas. This segment brought to you by Bud Light, and we're going to start with picks. And for that, here's Scott Bear and the final whistle.
Thanks, Wes. And now it's time for your pick at number 8. Tori McElhaney, who you got? Who are the Falcons taking with the number 8 overall selection?
So it's not a sexy pick, but I think it does help the overall health of the line of scrimmage. I'm going to take Charles Cross at number 8.
From Mississippi State.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the man with the cool name, the cool nickname, Ahmad Sauce Gardner, 6'3", almost 200 pounds, the real deal.
You think he's going to be there at 8?
I don't, but
but there's a way that somehow he could fall.
There's a way.
Right?
There's a possibility that
it
he
could
could fall,
happen.
and if it happens, I think Dean Pease will be doing backflips if he can do backflips.
100%. For Sauce Gardner, I think maybe he would.
He can, yeah.
Tori, why do you think that's the right spot? Charles Cross just locking up that offensive tackle spot?
Yeah, I think that we're going to see edge rushers off the board pretty early. I think Sauce is going to come off the board pretty early, and I think those 2 top offensive tackles are going to come off. I think if you're looking at best player available, that's really going to help you out in 2024, 2025, beyond. Charles Cross can help your line of scrimmage.
And I'm going with addressing need and what is a very good player, Florida State edge rusher Jermaine Johnson. That guy, I think, is a scheme fit. He can do it all. He's quick. He likes to play the run. He likes to get after the quarterback. That's my selection. Wes and Dave, back to you.
Okay, Scott, thanks very much. Dave, 2 questions here. Who does Jacksonville pick at 1?
Trayvon Walker comes off the board to Jacksonville, and betting on the come there because you're not sure exactly what kind of an edge rusher he is. All I know is when that man puts his hands on you, you feel it.
Yeah.
He's a hell of a player.
All right. My favorite question tonight is where does the draft start? Jacksonville picks at 1. Where does it start tonight for you?
To me, it starts at Houston at 3 because I wonder, are they going to take an offensive lineman? They get 2 picks in the top 13. So at 3, do they take Ekwonu, the big-time tackle out of NC State, or do they take one of the guys that I'm kind of leaning toward in one of those corners?
All right. So remember now, the Texans are one of 3 teams with 2 picks in the first 13.
That's right.
And joining the Jets and the Giants as well. All right. Who's Atlanta take at 8 tonight?
I think the 3 defensive ends that you covet are off the board. So now you're going to come down to Jermaine Johnson or Sauce Gardner. And I'm leaning both ways. I'd take either one of them. I'm going to put a little hot sauce on it, and I'm going to put the guy opposite A.J. Terrell that I think can be a lockdown corner as well. Wow. And I'm taking Ahmad Gardner at number 8 because I think the stuff you wanted are going to be off the board.
I'm going to go the other way. I think Jermaine Johnson's the guy tonight.
Okay.
I think the defensive end, Florida State, you mentioned the ACC Player of the Year. I think it fills a need. There's no question. I don't think Gardner's there. I think he's one of those guys that
very well could
that rolls off the board early. I'm also fast. I'm going to hedge here slightly. Kayvon Thibodeau.
Well, if Thibodeau's there, I will run the card from Atlanta to Vegas and put it in. I think he fits the team perfectly.
Is that under the clock? Can we get under the clock if you do
I don't
that?
know if I can get there in time. I mean, I'll try to.
Don't forget, we're sliding over to radio 92.9 The Game with Mike Conti. All the content at AtlantaFalcons.com and on social media. Good night, everybody.
Go Falcons.